Good evening, all. Thank you for taking out your time and attending this webinar. From the last couple of months, you have seen with the pandemic how the world is changing towards, right? We've been discussing about what is normal, what is new normal, what is going to be our science, how the companies would operate, and this has been the discussion of last 6 months. And initially, it was all about how do we ensure that people work from home, what is the facilities we need to enable if they have to work from home, what are the strategies we need to make, how do we collaborate and work with the HR. And the economy slowdown, and we also now realize that what is the impact it had on GDP from the last 6 months with the lockdown. So it cannot be standstill. Things has to move on, and the business has to continue. Now we had unlock 2, 3, and unlock 4. At least 90% of the operations are getting resumed. So when the So when things are becoming normal now with the unlock 4.0, if you have to get people back to work in a physical environment, what should be our strategy? What are the elements we need to look at? What is the kind of risk assessment we need to do? How do we need to prepare ourselves to face the challenges? And how do we also demonstrate the confidence in the people, stakeholders, and customers, and also business units that they can return back to work safely? And providing this confidence is going to be very, very critical. And we're going to listen from the experts, their viewpoints, right? So I would like to first welcome Srinivas Prasad Vemuru, who heads Open Text, is a regional director, facilities, India and Middle East, with about 25 years of experience, and managed about 400-acre plant setup, worked in different industries, and was being part of Open Text from scaling from 400 employees to 2,200 employees. Thank you, Prasad Garu, to be part of this, and I'm sure that your insight will definitely help a lot of facility managers and also fraternity. Thank you for being there. And I would like to welcome Raj Krishnamurthy, who is the CEO of Prespace. He's into technology. He's also co-founder and a board member for youth-oriented charity. We're going to understand how the technology can play a major role in getting people back to work. And we're also going to hear from you on the analysis they have done. And the case study is basically how they have got people back to work. So what is the confidence they build with the people? Thank you, Raj, to be part of the panel discussion. So I would like to welcome Sunil V, Senior Director, Facilities, Tavan Technologies, about 25 years of experience, been a mentor for many, inspiration for many. Thank you, Sunil, for accepting and being part of the panel. And welcome Girija M. Rangaswamy, Head of Facilities, Texas Instrument, with about 15 years of rich experience in projects across APAC region, been part of Nokia, Sodexo, and IBM. Welcome, Girija. Thank you for being part of this. Welcome, Padmanabhan Kannan, whom we call Paddy, senior CRE leader, about 20 years of experience, worked in Mindtree, Cognizant. Thank you, Paddy, for accepting. And Ramya Iyer, we wanted to bring in an element of the future workplace, because how should the workplace design has to be considering this pandemic? What is that we need to be look forward? Are we going to do a retrofit? One is we're taking a reactive action. And what are the elements we need to consider when we are designing the place for future, basically workplace for future? What is that we need to consider? So Ramya is going to throw insight on that. And thank you, Ramya, being part of this, and welcome. And welcome all the panel members. And I welcome all of you to be part of this webinar. And let's keep ourselves on mute. I would request everybody to be on mute until unless you don't speak. Any of the questions you have, please put across in a chat window and put it only to the organizers. The format is going to be, we'll start with the Srinivas Prasad Garu about objective, then the presentation by Ramya and Raj, followed by panel discussion. Then we'll have a question and answer. please put all your questions in the chat window, and I would request each of you to be on mute. Thank you and welcome you all for a great insights from the leaders. Over to you, Prasad Garu.
Thanks, Basu, for the nice introduction. Thank you very much for all the participants. We have already crossed 119. It's a good attendance. So I will not take much time. We distributed the time into 4 slots, as Basu said. I'd like to just put the objective and a little elaborate on, though nobody really evolved or nobody really sure of what is exactly going to happen. Maybe if you have pointers, most of the places, most of the companies to be decided is what we see, but there's a lot of work going on behind us. For example, Ramya will be presenting us who's already been engaged with several companies in futuristic design, where we are going to head in a year to 5 years from now. So we'll also get some insights from Raj on technology front, what they have done, what way it will be helpful for us to keep the workplace ready and also meet the expectation of employees and help building confidence among the employees as and when we intend to get them back. So can we move to next slide, Basu? So I will jump to the slide without spending much time. So all of us are aware that, okay, there's something, we are going to see something new normal, or what is that new normal is need not be similar to maybe tech companies, could be something different, service companies could be something different, but we're all very, very clear that we will not be returning back to the same office, not physically, but the way we operate, the way we probably interact, the way we do things are going to be different. How long we don't know, but I think as far as the information available, I think COVID is going to remain forever. So at least 6 months to an year, unless until we taste the results of the vaccine, I think we have to be mentally prepared to get into this new normal, and then and also help other business leaders to probably come with a strategy on what exactly the game plan for us to get the employees. Though most of the organizations we've already talked about work from home. John, at least most of us, some people said March, June, whole next year, but we all know some percentage of people at some point of time we have to get them, right? So what are the exactly key parameters when we want to get them back? We gathered some information here. We all know very well that if it's going to be work from home, probably earlier we're hearing about 10%. It may go towards 25 to 30% on the whole, but how long it will remain, we're not sure. There could be different perspectives in terms of tech companies may get 100% employees back. So the whatever information I'm sharing here is as I already said, it need not be necessarily 100% accurate in our views or perspectives, but uh, thoughts and probably outcome of surveys of 1,000 people is definitely better than having an individual kind of a thoughts. So probably we gathered some information on what IPCs are talking, what international furniture companies are talking, what the research agencies are talking. There's a combination of all this we put in this information for you, so which will be handy for the people please who are really engaged in different discussion with the business leaders at various levels, figuring it out on what will be the new normal. So what are our preparations for RTW? So we all know very well that why what are the main drivers for employees to come back home. These are the maybe couple of points we thought probably human beings, we are social animals. We definitely want to have interaction for innovation and collaboration, right? Especially tech companies. I'm referring to probably they may get back 100% of the employees. That's what we're hearing from some companies, right? And what exactly employees will expect when they return back to office. The whole kind of the utmost important for all of us as facilities leaders is to give that comfort and confidence that we as facilities teams globally geared enough to face the challenges. That's utmost important for us to get them back whatever percentage I will start with. So can we go to next slide, Basu? This is what I covered in the first slide. I put it in pictorial form a little bit. So we all know safety and enhancement is going to be different ball game altogether. So whoever operate from own campuses, I'm sure all of us would have indulged ourselves talking about HVAC and filters, Mervates, 13s, ASHRAE, and so on. But some of us who are operating from multi-tenanted campus, this is for us to figure it out on where we are, what is the standard for each country, are we aligned? That is much more important. And technology piece becomes more important to have some data points to tell them that we are geared to, to meet the challenges and workplace is sanitized enough, PPE equipment is available. We're also gearing ourselves to a future workspace. So the way we configure is going to be different, I'm sure, to a great extent. Yeah. Can you go to the next slide, Basu? This is what I was talking about initially when I started. So most of the surveys or most of the information available today are probably boiling down to 30% people want to work from home, maybe. Here are two going forward, we'll really see where we go. 70% would like to really come back. So we also covered all the regions, America, CMA, and AMC in terms of the surveys available. So we also have the millennials and a breakup of the different age groups. And in terms of the productivity, what exactly people expect. And if you look at this data, 44% people don't want to be at home. So remaining are spread into whoever want to come in different slots altogether. But ultimately it comes to 70% would like to come back to office. It may further change this way or that way. With the information available, probably this is what we could arrive as probably inputs for the people in the call. Yeah, can we go to next slide, Basu? So these are the main return to drivers. So I think most of us would agree. Face-to-face collaboration is something which most of us are missing. That will be kind of very, very important, and people would probably compelled to or want to get back to our office. And maybe meetings, though virtual meetings we're able to do, but still there are some meetings will be more productive and fruitful when we have physical meetings. And socializing with colleagues, though there's indirect, but there's a big driver for especially in MNCs, the culture what we have done. And we would like to have face-to-face interaction, impromptu discussions, and more importantly, as millennials want to be part of the community, you don't want to work in isolation. Maybe you should not be missing the piece of only learning curve, right? So especially the millennials would be missing that if permanently if they are going to work from home. So these are the few benefits. I think most of you will agree what we are talking. Innovation and the co-creation is something which is extremely critical. Trust and relation building anyway required. So building company culture, as organizations, we would like to get them. May not be get everybody every day, but at some point in time, we would like to definitely have them. There are also few challenges we figured out from the information available. So it could be technology, it could be various different issues, could be bandwidth, furniture limitations, maybe they're not really productive enough, environment and distractions maybe. Inconsistent work experience, especially for the people who are working from joint families or not really having all the required paraphernalia to ensure the productivity. Right. So I would like to put very briefly, these are the 4 slides which probably were evident based on the information where different sources we gathered in. Right. So I will hand over to Ramya, who will be taking us through a little more elaborate on what exactly the organization thinking, where we lack, and also what will be the futuristic design and people will look for, because I'm sure it will be good learning for all of us. They're working with many companies on the same already. Thank you very much, and I'll hand over to Ramya now.
Thank you, Prasad, for this brief introduction, I think which largely covers everything that we want to address in the call today. The whole idea of this presentation is basically running through the various processes that would need to be done, for getting people back to the office, and also most importantly, what does the future of offices are going to look like. I think all of us will agree here that these exercises cannot be done by facilities alone, by the HR team alone. It's going to be a collaborative effort, wherein you're going to have the HR working on the policies, the facilities team, the real estate team collaborating with the base builder, working on the strategy for return, the tech teams coming in and doing integration and making the whole process more seamless, designers like us contributing and helping our clients in doing workspace mapping or advising them on retrofitting in their facilities, and also advising them on what the future needs to be. And I think all of us want to achieve one goal, which is that when an employee comes back to the office, he has that sense of security. He's not anxious, because if an employee comes back and they're going to be anxious at work, we all know that there's productivity going to be affected, and not just that, the mental well-being of people can also get affected. So I think the whole idea is to create spaces where when people are coming back, they're confident, they're able to create an environment which is transparent, which allows for people to have that feedback, interactions amongst different teams, and make it a more collaborative exercise rather than one or two teams driving the whole thing. So if you were to talk about the focus, the immediate focus that we have is on three different aspects. One is the people. How do we engage with the employees? How do we let them know, communicate to them what are the various tools that have been used in the facility, and how that whole process is going to happen? Second is the workspace itself, integrating the physical distancing norms, the hygiene practices that need to come in, the indoor air quality. And thirdly, the most important thing, immediate, would be the SOP in terms of the day-to-day activities, whether it is cleaning, whether it is having a strategy in place in case there is a person who is unwell, what are the processes that you're going to have. So these are the three driving factors in the immediate scenario. So right now, the way we see ourselves is that we are in the transition phase. So we are trying, the immediate response that most organizations have currently is how to get people back to work. And of course, things have evolved in the last 6 months, and every day there's a new learning, new understanding about the virus itself. And of course, the way we need to keep adapting to it. So it's not going to be one solution which is going to be working for us for the next 6 months. We may have to keep evolving it, looking at it every 1-2 months in the next, a year or so. And of course, the future strategy is then what is this that the pandemic has taught us? Everyone has a business continuity plan, but what kind of a continuity plan can we integrate in scenarios like these when we can't even come to an office, right? So I think that's going to play a very, very important role. Again, what is important is to have a holistic overview. It cannot be just design driven, space driven, cost driven. It has to be a holistic approach which all of us will have to take. So when we talk about strategy for return, I think the most important thing is the employee engagement. It's very, very important to have that communication, like Prasad mentioned, conduct surveys, understand from people what are their concerns, what are the things that they're most anxious about, have a communication tool where you're regularly updating them about different protocols. If you're planning an entry, advising them, letting them know, maybe have some sort of an orientation session, advising them as to what are the processes that are going to be in place. Staggered shift entry, because if you're going to have people coming in, on your floor you may have limited people, but at the lift lobby there are going to be a lot of people coming in. So how can you collaborate with the base builder to have some sort of a staggered shift entry, so that you're monitoring, you're aware of the number of people that are going to be coming in, and how do you monitor that? That's going to play a very important role. Setting up a task force within the organization. Obviously, when people come back to work, they will have queries, and also it can happen that people may tend to get a little complacent, not wear a mask, not wash their hands. I think it's very, very important that there are systems in place to ensure all the protocols are managed, and also a system wherein if people have any issues, there's some sort of a redressal committee, they can go and reach out to someone. When we're talking about workspace readiness per se, we are talking about two different aspects. One is the base building readiness, which is largely under the landlord, and the second is the workspace area itself, which would be under the control of the tenant itself. And I think within those, there are different parameters we need to look at. So for example, what is the common building common area usage protocol? What are the physical distancing norms that the builder is going to follow, and what are the protocols that they have in place? What are the personal protections that is going to be in place for this? Having said that, workspace, again, the same things come in, but I think we have to go one step up in terms of the well-being and the IAQ aspect. How can you ensure that your environment, the indoor air quality levels can be maintained in such a manner that people, because we are sitting in air-conditioned buildings, and these is going to be a very, very important aspect when you have more and more people coming back to work. So when you're talking about base building readiness, the first thing I think there has to be a dialogue with the builder to understand what are the processes that they have engaged, what are the recommissioning protocols they have followed, because most of these buildings have been shut down for quite some time. The AC systems haven't been running well, and of course they have to do an overhaul of the AC system in case the systems are very old, maybe change the filters and all. I think having that conversation to understand what are the kind of steps that the builder has taken, ask them for the report so you can evaluate it with your own team. What are the kind of resource deployment they're going to have for housekeeping, security guards, how are they going to measure the temperatures when people walk in? Again, what is the redressal mechanism that the builder has? So in case a tenant has an issue, and if you want to raise it to the builder, what are the kind of systems they have in place, and how soon can they come back to you with a solution? The building common area is going to be a challenging space because this is going to be shared by multiple tenants, and hence it's very, very important as all tenants, probably a joint meeting with the builder where everyone can come address their concerns and understand what are the processes that are going to be in place. So whether it is the use of the lift, whether it is the use of scanning, thermal scanning for people walking in, floor signages, are they going to be deploying some sort of QR-based visitor management tool so that you're not having to touch surfaces when you come in? Could there be some sort of gesture-based air screens and lifts so that people don't have to press the lift? So for example, the image here you can see, so it's a gesture-based thing, so you're not actually touching the lift keys itself. And I think all of this has to be, again, like I said, a collaborative effort, and understanding very importantly from the base builder and communicating that to your employees is also going to play a very, very key role, because that is the first area that they're going to enter in once they step into the building. Again, simple things like elevator etiquettes, how are people supposed to use it? For example, Kone has come out with a remote call device, so from your phone itself, you can press the floor number and it will guide you to the nearest lift. So how can we make the entry into the floor as contactless as possible is something which will have to be looked at. So when we're talking about workspace occupancy, there are various factors that can come into play. Teams will obviously be coming either on alternate days, or there could be shifts where some teams are coming in for 3 days in a row, and followed by the second team which is coming in for 2 days in a row. And I think that planning has to be done very, very carefully. Secondly, it is very, very important that you don't have all employees coming in on the same day. Like if you have decided that, okay, 50% employees need to come, it has to be something where you start off at 20, 30, 40, because as you start doing this, you will learn things, you will find if there are any issues, and you can start tackling it before you're reaching to that 50% or 60% occupancy, whichever your floor layout will permit. A sanitization room is something we are recommending to a lot of our clients, because a lot of people may be sharing cabs. Right now, of course, we don't have local available, but in that is it possible for people to walk in and just clean, throw out their masks, maybe change their gloves, if they're wearing an overlay, change it, and then move into the workspace. Also, in terms of planning of how people move into the office is going to be very, very different. Although you can navigate seats, but how do you ensure that when people are walking in corridors, they're not walking to each other? How do you ensure that that physical distancing aspect is maintained? When you're walking on the corridor itself. So for example, when it comes to the occupancy, I'll just go to the layout. So this is something that we've done for a client of ours. And we have mapped out on the entire floor bases of a 6 feet dia or 1.8 meters, which seats and which of these seats can be occupied, right? What we are also recommending to the client that rather than doing occupy, not occupy, go for an alternate day approach. So for example, you can have a group A and a group B. So on different days, you have different groups. And what it essentially does is that between a person, say a person from group A comes and occupies the seat, the next time the seat will be occupied, it will be a 24-hour gap. That by itself is a reassuring factor. When someone comes into work, they know that at least for the last 24 hours, no one has been sitting on their chair or sitting on the table. Also, from a sanitization and a maintenance perspective, I think it's very, very easy to then track these processes. For meeting rooms, I think it's going to be a very, very important aspect to clearly allocate, how many occupants can come. Signages need to be placed outside these meeting rooms. The best solution is to remove the chairs. So if a meeting room can hold only 8 people, just keep 8 chairs, remove the additional chairs and move it into a store. And I think these things have to be constantly reinforced, because enclosed spaces are where, all documents show, whether it's a CDC report or any other report which is coming in locally, that enclosed areas, if you're sitting in for long, is where the higher chances of contracting the viruses. So it's very, very important that there are very, very strict protocols in place for these enclosed areas. Cafeteria is again going to be a space which is going to be occupied by many people at one point. So having the queuing mechanism in place, clearly allocating which seats people need to be sitting in. How do you manage the shift? Can technology be used? Can we use an app-based system to kind of order food? So not everyone is coming into the cafeteria, but they're sitting in their workspace and ordering food, or they come in only when their food is ready. So these kind of technology integrations will also be needed. You'll have to do specifically in spaces like cafeteria. Again, the same applies for spaces like breakouts and pantry, having a very, very clear demarcation on the floor where they know where people need to stand, identifying which seats can be occupied. Also, one of the things that is practiced in a lot of the offices which have reopened up, especially in the West, is they're not allowing people to go and touch the coffee machines and all. They rather have a barista there who is wearing the PPE, handling it. So, the touch points at the cafeteria, at the cafe counter is also getting minimized to a large extent. Washrooms, again, is a very important area wherein typically we have been most of the offices, the challenge is that the access to the washrooms will be through a narrow corridor. So it's very, very important to have proper understanding as to how many number of people can actually be utilizing the washroom. Someone needs to be controlling it. So it could either be a sensor-based system or someone physically standing there and who goes in, who doesn't go in. Also having SOP sanitization. So these spaces would require more regular sanitization compared to the rest of your office space. This is like a queuing plan. So you can see here very clearly the queuing plan is marked here. People know very clearly how they need to move in. You're ensuring and given people are not walking in bi-direction, so you need movement coming through the space. So when we come to the next aspect of personal protection, there are a couple of things we as architects are recommending to our clients. So this is more like retrofit solutions. One is how do you have contactless surfaces? For example, your doors, your taps in the washrooms, your maybe soap dispensers. How do you kind of ensure that all of these become more contactless? What solutions can we have some sort of retrofit solutions to create more protection around, maybe like a plexiglass screen or something like that? Use of UV light-based disinfection system within the office. Of course, this has to be carefully monitored because UV light, especially UVC, which has been recommended for this for combating this particular virus, is very harmful to human beings. So we need to be very careful when we have such protocols in place. Also, having very, very specific schedules which are in place, which are getting monitored regularly for sanitization, and there is an overview which is happening from the senior team members. So movement plan, like I mentioned, is going to play a very, very important role, because when people come into the office, you'll typically find that in the lobby space or the common corridors, you will have a lot of footfall. So it is very, very important to have certain systems in place, whether it's a floor mapping, where you're actually mapping directional signages on the floor, infographics at multiple locations, display screens, dynamic, so basically keep messaging, encourage people to follow a particular direction. Also app-based solutions, right? So you can actually have an app, which is like a wayfinding app, which can probably lead you to your workstation. So these are some ideas as to how signages can be integrated. We do believe that design the signages well so that they give the information, at the same time encourage people to follow that unidirectional movement that I'm talking about. So if you see in this particular layout that we have done, so the entry is happening from one side, and the whole movement, except for maybe one or two places which is bi-directional, people are either moving in anti-clockwise or clockwise direction. So the entry is happening through one door and the exit is happening through the other door. Because once people move into their workspaces, the corridors are where you're going to have the challenge, and most of the existing offices, you will not have the luxury of removing a couple of workstations and widening the corridors. So having systems in place, informing it, probably giving like a map or something to employees when they walk in so they know clearly which direction to take, they're not confused. Having a lot of signages around the office is the step that we recommend when it comes to controlling the movement pattern. Again, sanitizer locations are very, very important. So especially the entry points when people are just stepping into the office, we are recommending having floor mounted sanitizer points. Also having specific bins for disposals of masks or gloves, because these are bio waste and these have to be collected and taken care of accordingly. Having sensor-based sanitizers in shared areas like a break area, meeting rooms, cafeterias, any area where you're going to have multiple people coming and sitting, you can have sensor-based sanitizers on the tabletop itself. Again, from a contactless workspace perspective, there are a lot of different options specifically for the doors. Going in for automatic swing doors, especially if you're using an access control, these could be retrofitted into the existing site itself. Having a touch-free sanitizer kiosk in multiple locations. Going for sensor-based stall partitions so that, just by gestures, you can open the door and move in. Again, probably using forearm shields, because the challenge is that when you have doors with a mortise lock, it's going to be very, very difficult to open it. So using forearm shields so that your arm is not actually touching the surface. Again, something at the foot level, the foot pedals which are there. So these are again some recommendations that we're giving to our clients. When we're talking about workstation solutions, largely we are focusing on some sort of plexi screens, especially for areas like the reception and all, wherever there's a lot of engagement with the visitors. Those kind of desks, maybe in the cafeteria where there's a teller sitting, you need to have these kind of plexi screens so that they are protected, at the same time able to perform their responsibilities. Existing workstations, adding another layer of plexi screens on top to give that added layer of security for your employees. And these are all temporary solutions, right? So you can always remove them at a later date. Divider screens between two people sitting back to back. Again, I think a lot of it also has to do with giving that sense of security and that feeling of comfort to the employees. So it may not necessarily help, because if the people are not facing each other, they're technically it's not a problem. But a lot of these things I think also takes care of the emotional aspect for an employee who is coming in, and probably they feel more secure when they're sitting in a corner kind of a situation with clear demarcations around them. I'll let Raj take over from this part where we talk about the technology tools that can get implemented into the workspace.
Thank you very much, Ramya, for that thorough kind of design presentation and setting the stage nicely, and also to Prasad sir for doing the initial grounding on data, which is, I think, fundamentally what we should constantly be looking at. What is the data that's validating our thinking? My name is Raj Krishnamurthy. I am the CEO of FreeSpace. We are a technology company, workplace technology company based out of London and Mumbai. We were established in 2015, and over the years, we've had technology that's been instrumental in transforming large businesses into agile working environments. With COVID, we believe that COVID actually presents us once in a lifetime opportunity to deploy the power of technology in the workplace. And we put together a pathway for returning to a new workplace and beyond. And we believe this pathway as to where technology can help is in several areas: safety and assurance to start with, compliance and tracking, messaging and getting the behavioral change in people to work safely as well as to work efficiently, the data taking back and pulling that into reports and using that data to bring about change, and the business intelligence to forecast where we are going in the new world. So just 1 minute, Ramya. On the left hand side here also is the users, the stakeholders, where office users and FM team primarily focus in the first phase of return, and then as we go into a new way of working, rebalancing your capacity, and then rejuvenating the place that you actually decide to work with, and divesting the place that you don't want. So these are the different phases. I'm going to focus predominantly on the return phase. If you go to the next slide, we talk about the return phase. The typical questions that employees, the different stakeholders have. An employee is asking, when should I come in? And will I have a socially distanced, clean desk near my colleagues? The facilities manager is saying how many people are coming, and I have to plan this week and next week. The real estate manager is looking at further on, how much capacity do we overall need over time, and what do we need to release? I don't want to release everything too quickly. And an HR manager, on the other hand, is saying, how can we guarantee the well-being and safety? So there are several tools that we have designed, and I think some of this that Ramya has pointed out, some of this to do with base build, but we are going to focus here on very specific tools that have been tested and deployed and are being used right now successfully. So if you go to the next slide, there are 4 areas which we talk about primarily, and these are I'll go over them fairly quickly. But the first is scientific redesign of the workplace. I think Ramya showed some examples. From our perspective, what we have done is we have integrated it with AutoCAD so that you can enter the parameters, say 1.8 meters, and then human diameter, some buffer zones, and the system automatically calculates what the layout should be. So that is something that we have, because we have the AutoCAD integration, we've been able to do. Assurance and compliance is something very simple, new technology that we've introduced, which is a QR based tag, which is a simple peel and stick tags, which comes in roles. It's colored, so it helps you to demarcate between 2 sets, for example, like the one that Ramya pointed out, day 1 and day 2 approach. But the uniqueness is also, it's got a unique QR. Every tag has got a unique QR code, which has got an API for those technically oriented. It's got an API associated with it that connects to the cloud and gives information to the user. We'll talk about how that works. The third area is a desk and room booking app, which has also got a web application. So it's a combination of mobile and web app, which helps users to plan their way into work. We have deployed this, tested and deployed this successfully in different environments, and this is something that I'll highlight a little bit more on. And the last but not least is capacity and demand management. As the people demand, as the demand rises, as people want to come in, how does a planner look at what capacity they have and balance that capacity, capacity with the demand that's coming in? If you go to the next slide, can get a deeper dive into how some of these things work. So, for example, here there is a flow plan that has been laid out, like Ramya as well earlier pointed out. This has been automatically calculated based on a parameter that's been entered. So, blue days and orange days, and because this is a tightly packed space, and the criteria is quite been given as a significantly sufficient social distancing, many of the spaces are not usable spaces. So you can see these tags, which are now uniquely color coded, uniquely numbered, and these can be deployed in the blues and orange spaces so that you can tell people which space to sit on, and they can use that QR code accordingly. If I go to the next slide, you can see the next aspect of it, which is the app. This is something that the way we have designed, we have put in a lot of thought in terms of not only the usability. I mean, the pointers that that the speakers have said before is that it needs to be easy for people to use. There's an expectation that not more stress to be added. So usability, we have done a lot of research, and here all the user needs to do, the employee needs to do, is to say they're coming in. And the system automatically, on the day before they're coming in, assigns a space based on their preferences. So you can save your preferences, your favorite desk or your department or your colleague or wherever you want to be. And based on what is available socially distanced on the night before, the system assigns the space for you. Also provisions for lockers and car parks or cycle stands or what have you. The other thing that I think Prasad Garu talked about, which was the collaboration aspect of it. Today, first employees coming in, that might not be that important. People are coming back more for working from a different place than home. But as the deployment comes through, the interest will be significantly on collaborating. Who else is coming in to work on that day, and where are they coming? I want to come in on those days only. So what the system does is it allows you to have what's called a My Circle, which is a small group of your colleagues that you work with, and it gives you a visibility of on that day who is coming in. So that gives immediately this collaboration concept where you can see people coming in and then accordingly decide whether you want to come in or not on that day. So you go to the next slide, you can see some images of how this works in action. On the day you're coming in, you're assigned a space. It tells you exactly which place to go to. It tells you which parking spot you have, but it also tells you how busy the office is. Now, one would say, why do you need this? And all this is part of those messaging of to employees for their comfort. Because if something as to what is happening in the office, you already are informed. Coming in, you're not surprised. So the app tries to set the scene for the employees as they're coming in. And as they come in, this now ties into the spot tag that we talked about in 2 slides ago, where the employee using their app itself is able to say on the desk that they go to, scan it and check into that desk. But when they scan it, the app also gives them a large amount of other information. We'll share the slides with you after the presentation. But the app gives you as to when the space was used, when the space was cleaned. And the reason it does that is because, as you will see later when I present it, the cleaning team has got an ability to write, quote unquote, write in the on the spot tag in its cloud repository using the API. And that's how the user, when they scan it, they know when the space was last used, because the sensor is installed or somebody else has checked in. It tells the tag that the space was used, and the cleaning team is scanning it, and they say it is clean. And that is the way there is an audit trail, so that the user themselves can see that audit trail before they start using the space. This is something that is customizable, and we have customized it in different ways for different clients. We go to the next slide. We talk about the capacity.
Raj, sorry for barging in. I think we're running over. So probably request you to wind maybe in a couple of minutes, please. Yeah, thank you.
Yes, absolutely. Thanks, Prasad. Yeah. So this is the capacity and demand management. This is where planners are able to see what demand is there in the long run and how much capacity needs to be released. We go to the next slide. We talk about the visual aspects of the solution, where you are able to present this information on an employee signage. The next slide talks about the cleaning solution. This is where we said before, where the cleaners are able to use the a tool to actually mark the space to be cleaned. There's a lot of integrations available on this technology as well. And finally, the final slide that I have really brings it all together, where you take it and use more intensive technology, such as the sensors. Now, this is where our background has been. We have deployed more than 100,000 sensors globally. And this technology actually ties into those washrooms that the Ramya showed, where it's able to count the number of people inside the washroom and present that information outside. So it helps people decide whether they should go in or not based on what is available. So this is a thermal sensor. It's a captures no personally identifiable information, and that's why we're able to deploy it even in private spaces such as washrooms. I encourage you to kind of reach out and find out more about these solutions. We have things on air quality as well, which is obviously other ways of sensing it. But from a technology point of view, we believe, like I said very early on, this is a unique opportunity. We're all starting from the same place as the world of workplace, if you may. We have an opportunity to create something fantastic and new in the long run. I'll hand it back to Ramya to take it further from here. Thank you.
Yeah, Prasad, do we have time, or we can actually wrap up now?
Yeah, we need to wrap up, Ramya. Thank you very much. I think we're already running late by 5-7 minutes, I think. Yeah. Okay, thank you, Ramya. Thank you, Raj. Let's make use of the time given by senior leaders from facility. So I would like to start with Sunil. What are the steps to be taken to prepare business leaders for this new normal to be successful in managing the workplace services going forward? Because they are the people who have to be kind of fully in it. So maybe unless until we have a business leaders with us, it is not going to be easy to run it over, right? Would you please share your thoughts? Sunil? You're on mute, I think, Sunil.
Thank you, Prasad Garu, for inviting me, Basu. And the question is, we need to convince our management by putting the three balls together, right? So one is a redesign, reinvent, and respond, right? So redesign is to share how the working practice would be, and more talk about the policies and policies, right? So that is about redesigning. Redesigning is not structurally redesigning. It is not needed at this point in time. Probably the working practices and the policies needs to be disclosed, communicated, and more talk about productive work environment, right? So what are the things that we have done in the redesigning stage? What are the new technology that we have brought in and things like that? And we should take people first, say take the culture first, right? So talk to as many people and get their ideas to redesign this next normal. So once we redesign this, then we go to reinvent, right? So reinvent is all about empowering employees to work from anywhere, right? It can be from office, it can be from home, and provide all the resources which is needed, right? So internet, computer, whatever it needs, right? And consistent experience across the workplaces, right? And digital transformation as a state of mind, right? So that those falls into the reinvent bracket. And next step would be the respond criteria. So the next normal would be react to the crisis, right? If there is any crisis, how do we mitigate that, and how do we bring that business continuity? And then if required, then move those things to work from home or shift to work from home, sort of. So redesign, reinvent, and re-respond would be the next normal, is what my thinking is.
Thanks, Sunil. My next question is to Paddy. Maybe stage is set for the kind of to probably look a little bit on this, and multi-dimensional workplace strategy will emerge as a response to the demographic spread of human assets and also need of the hour is a likely possibility, right? Are we really prepared, Paddy?
Paddy, you're on mute.
Sorry about that.
Yeah,
I just
please
started
go ahead.
by saying, having heard you, Ramya, and Raj, I think it's pretty evident that having 6 months gone by facing this pandemic, most of the companies, and including us as individuals and leaders, have done what it is required to kind of respond and manage the situation well. But I think this time has also given a lot of new possibilities to all the stakeholders, including employees, the management, the stakeholders such as facilities team, to think as to how are they going to respond going forward. Because as we speak, nobody can, with reasonable assurance, can tell this is how it's going to be 3 months, 6 months down the line. I think it's very, very evolving. There are a lot of moving parts. And I think all of that we are doing right now is to be aware, probably have some clarity in terms of how should we respond, depending on how the business is, requesting us to solution. With that as a concept, when I say multi-dimensional real estate strategy, all I can summarize is we are creating flexibility. Now, Raj was telling in terms of the technology aspect of managing workplaces that we already have. But I think what's also happening is with a lot of our folks working from home, there is an unfound possibility that we have discovered as to how business can run, how deliveries can happen in a very, very different environment than what we are all used to, which is large office setups. Of course, work from home was happening even before, maybe in a very small percentage. But today we have 95, 96% of our large workforces working from home. And I think in the last 6 months, we have not heard from any company about any major deliverables getting missed or whatever. Of course, there are so many downsides that we all are aware and then discussed, whether it is having that FaceTime with our colleagues or having that collaborative, aspects of meeting people in person, psychological impact that it will have in the long run, and so on and so forth. Keeping that apart, I mean, it's a very, very strange, very new sort of environment that we are all in. I'm sure to respond to this, even the real estate strategy will have to evolve. When I say evolve, the conventional wisdom said that our real estate solutions were either it is in terms of expanding or in terms of consolidating your portfolio or densifying your portfolio and so on and so forth. But today there are new dimensions to it, whether it is work from home as a mainstream strategy or looking at co-working space in a very different dimension than what we have been seeing it so far, or actually going the hub and spoke model. There is a lot of discussions, there is a lot of programs that many of us have already started in the respective companies that you work. So I think looking at the softer impact, not business side of impact, other impact in terms of what people have felt, and I think there are numerous surveys that Prasad you also said right at the beginning. There is sentiments or feedback from people also suggesting there is a dimensional shift in terms of how people prefer to work. So all of this will have definitely a large change in the way office real estate is thought through. You will see a lot of change. And I think on the supply side, if you really look at it, there's a lot of consolidation that's happening. There's a lot of institutional investments that is happening in the real estate sector. You have seen Blackstone or Fairfield acquiring large office real estate parks. So all of this is going to kind of transform the way real estate is, supplied, real estate is consumed, and you will see a lot of changes. What I feel. In the nutshell, what I want to summarize is, I think the key is going to be having flexibility in your planning, and how do we respond? Because we all know real estate takes a little bit of time in terms of response. Because however nimble you are, however agile you are, it takes a minimum 6-8 months to respond to a changing situation. But I think that will be challenged. We will be expected to solution the changing demands in a fairly quicker time. So you will have to kind of think also very nimble way in terms of what are the newer aspects of real estate strategy that you need to be aware and then stitch together as a solution. So that is what is the trend I would summarize, Prasad.
Thank you very much, Paddy. Sunil, my next question is to you. So we've talked about how do we engage with business leaders, probably have them on our side or probably as a single team. Maybe how are we engaging ourselves in terms of engaging IT and other teams and collaborating with HR, because it's not going to be facilities game, right? So unless until there is a bind created by the HR, by having a dialogue or a surveys or whatever, the key for success is to win the confidence of employees in the new model. So how are we collaborating with HR and IT in that front?
Yeah, so that's a good question, Prasad. In fact, at Tavant, what we do is we constantly have a senior management meeting, right? And we tend to talk to a lot of industry friends, get some ideas from the HR perspective, the IT perspective, and from the facilities perspective, and gather those information and brainstorm within ourselves and start communicating to the larger crowd as to what needs to be addressed as a winning strategy, right? Or building the confidence of employees. So communication plays a vital role in terms of all the services getting together.
Absolutely, yeah. Thanks, Sunil. I will go with my next question with other panelist, Girija. Girija, as we know, the transport is kind of USP, or we prefer to provide, some organization provide in the past, but now it probably may have to be treated as an essential service from USP going forward, at least till probably normalcy is restored. And maybe how are we really trying to meet the expectation of business and employees and challenges with the transporters and concerns around, and of course at the end the costs involved in ramping up. We all made up the budget, so I think our hands are also tight in terms of the budget. So how are we preparing as facilities leaders?
Girija, you need to unmute and speak.
Okay, sorry. Transport, the whole definition of calling transport with safety, right? Always we used to say that we have to bring employees safely to office and drop them back. The whole definition of safety has enlarged now. It is much more than bringing them to office without any accidents, right? Now the accident concept also has changed with COVID coming in. And as you mentioned earlier, it is always return to work is with phases. At least first 2 phases, till at least 30-40% come back to work. And we don't prefer to ask employees to come by public transport. Though public transport now it's available, it's not preferred in the interest of the safety of the site. So generally, organizations are asking their employees to either use their own vehicle or come by transport. Transport is also, it's kind of over last 6 months, we have evolved quite a lot in learning how to deal with this new situation with transport as well. Initially, when government started with for transport, no, they insisted that 2 people should be there, 3 occupancy, 30% occupancy, and all that. But while following that, now there are no such strict restriction, but it is our responsibility as an organization to bring that confidence, because the whole idea is one day we have to come back to work. Though now it is working from home, we are all used to this, there is a good productivity, but at some point we need to come back to work. Considering that, it is very important for us to give that confidence to employees, and again, that is a responsibility. Obviously, the cost is high. Taking in our organization, when we started with, we were having 2 occupancy. Now it has come down to bring that confidence after 1 single case. It became like single occupancy per vehicle. Obviously, the cost, and there is no shared cost, and instead of 3 or 4 people in 1 vehicle, now it is 1 person. The cost has gone 4 times higher than the earlier cost. But I would say it is still worth it till we get the confidence of the employees that my workspace, I can go safely and I can come back to work. I think that is the way organization is looking at, because this is very vital part of this. Apart from this, then sanitization, there is a lot of challenge for us facility managers managing the transport. Each and every trip, the vehicle has to be sanitized, and the drivers mainly. This is it is the main challenge is to manage these drivers who are coming. We need to have dedicated vehicle, work with the transport supplier to have dedicated vehicles for the organization, having dedicated drivers, and also educating them is very important, because they directly go from their home to pick up the employees, having asking them to check the employee, screening them, thermometer, giving thermometer, training them, and also check themselves, send this screenshot of their Arogya Setu app before starting their day, or send their temperature before starting the day. These additional responsibilities, additional safety measures have added quite a lot of load on, of course, on transport managers. Then also there's other challenge when if somebody is there is a positive case, then this app automatically it will change, Arogya Setu app, and when we have very mandatory Arogya Setu app to be only green, not even green with low risk, in that cases we generally have shortage of vehicles and drivers who can attend to work. So this will also add a lot of planning to have backup plan, backup vehicles, backup drivers, and they also have to be, they should not be they have to complete the checklist that they have not traveled for last 14 days and they have not come in contact with anybody. So there are a lot of checklists and challenges now to do this, but I would say it is worth it, because that is one of the ways that we can bring that confidence to employees to come back to work.
Absolutely. Thank you very much, Gita, because each thing is very important. Each piece is important to ensure that people have confidence coming back. Yeah. One more question to you, which is critical for our operations, mainly all the MNCs, Girija. F&B services. One, we are talking about hygiene and quality, and that's where it's not that easy to maintain physical distancing. Maybe if you want to probably go with the disposable, are we really keeping in mind of biodegradables? How are you planning to step up in F&B services? Because we may not
Yeah.
start in a phase 2 when the less than 5% or so, but we all know eventually we need to start that, right? How are we getting it?
Right. I think Ramya also covered some of the points in her presentation. Yeah, this is one area very important, especially in the cafeteria. That is the only place where employees they don't wear their mask. Rest of the places we insist on social distancing, insist on wearing mask, but that is they can't escape. But they have to remove their mask when they are in the cafeteria. So that actually brings lot of concerns that I have heard from people when they are for 15-20 minutes when they open and they are eating. That isn't it a place that employees might get contacted with the virus if there is any other person there. So I think this is a very sensitive area that one of the challenging area for us. I would say of course social distancing and rearranging the cafeteria to minimize the number of tables and chairs, that is something that all the organizations we have been doing it. But as we move forward, workstation we can manage, rest of the area we can manage, but these common areas including cafeteria is a major problem. So maybe finding out alternative cafeteria space to accommodate some more, because the existing any organization, when we design, we don't design for this kind of situation, right? We design with the standard 1:4, 1:8, some ratio. Now it is demanding much higher spacing. So we are trying to find out some other alternative space we have identified and making that as a temporary cafeteria, so that very good social distancing. It is more than 6 feet, but the rest of the area when we wear masks 6 feet is okay, but in the cafeteria when they are coming close, so it's more than 6 feet, we are trying to arrange one area. And also disposable plates, this biodegradable and all. I think few days it works, but it is something that it's not sustainable for a pretty long time as we grow up with our site attendance. So I would still say I don't think that will work. Only as a short-term measure it will work. We have to come back to the same our earlier system. But probably what is best is, instead of having self-service buffet system that most of the time for meals that and all we use, having helping the serving by somebody, a single person with as minimum touch points would also bring that kind of safety measure. And upgrading with our good dishwashers to having this additional load on our housekeeping staff and all, with very good dishwashing machines also is something that I would say it's good. While managing all this, the other important factor that I see is, as a facility managers, the people that we have, housekeeping team, they are very critical during this time. They are the ones who are cleaning, who are keeping the site at hygiene level that we ask them to maintain with hourly cleaning frequency, increased frequencies and all. So I think a lot of focus has to be given to them in terms of educating them, creating awareness, because most of the cases they're not self-aware of what is happening around. So bringing more education, more awareness, and continuously training them well to cope up with this kind of situation is something that I believe very important. And also having a backup plan is also important, because these people they all come from generally our service providers, they hire them from the neighborhood of any organization and they come together. So it is very easily possibility that if one is positive, the others also can get contacted with this virus. So having a backup plan, safe backup plan with our housekeeping team or any other technical services also is very important, so that if they are safe, obviously facility is safe and we can get additional safety measures implemented.
Thanks, Girija. I think my next question to you, Ramya, I'm sure you have covered, but see, our interest will be what will be kind of immediate solutions. So for example, how can we recreate workspaces to cater to hybrid culture, considering COVID in the intermediate periods? Maybe the longest term strategies will emerge, but it takes time, right? So you must be doing some work for some organizations. So can you throw light on how do we probably address that?
Yeah. So, I think the biggest challenge is when the hybrid kind of work form comes in, and that's going to be a transition phase. It's not going to happen immediately. And the workspace has to gear up for that. We need to see who are the people who are coming in and for what are they coming in. So, for example, some organizations, you might have people coming in for a brainstorming session or a full day workshop, and then go back to working for the next 3 days. The other thing that we also feel, which is going to happen a lot, is a lot more of these video calls, right? We're not going to be going and meeting our clients. Our inter office meetings are going to be on video calls. So when we are talking about retrofitting an existing office, we are definitely recommending our clients to go with, the pods which are there, smaller pods which are there for people to do video calls. How we can redesign their existing collaboration spaces to make it more effective in terms of the fact that when people are coming in, they have multiple options within the office. We want to kind of avoid using enclosed spaces at least for some time. So how can we use, say, probably a training room and modify it, bring in more agile furniture into the space, so it allows for flexibility. People are more comfortable sitting in. So what we have to do is, there are no set solutions, but yes, we can take existing layouts, and we have been advising our clients taking the existing layouts, probably removing workstations from a particular zone altogether, converting them into smaller open collaborative zones. So there are different measures which we are recommending to our clients to kind of manage this hybrid work style, which is going to evolve. But having said that, going ahead, like you rightly pointed out in the beginning, there is going to be a different work culture which is going to come out of it, and each organization is going to have a different approach to it. And I think our role as designers is to kind of understand the organization's requirement and then customize and give bespoke solutions which are appropriate for your organization, and not do like a cookie cutter formula.
Absolutely, Ramya. Thank you so much. My next question is to you, Raj. So you already said what technology can do probably going forward. So my question to you is how technology can probably can help employees non-intrusively without adding stress. So they should not get a feeling that they've been watched, they've been controlled, but at the same time, probably they should be able to enjoy the fruits and also get the comfort and confidence of workspace, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for the question, Prasad. I think first and foremost, I think there has to be executive sponsorship. Whenever you're talking about deploying technology in a very constrained and very stressful environment, there has to be clear executive sponsorship coming from the top, saying that we are adopting this thing. It will require change. It will require patience from people, but we have tested this, and we are confident that this is the right solution. So once that executive sponsorship is there, things move faster. And that executive sponsorship should be taken up first by the CRE head and the IT security head to make sure that the basics are right. The technology is going to work. It's been tested somewhere else. I'm not going to be a guinea pig for you. Secondly, it's going to not compromise my security, so the IT head has to sign off. Once those two things are done, then the evaluation basis for the technology has to be anonymous. You should not be capturing personally identifiable information unless there is some way to some other way needed for capturing when somebody falls ill, or the whole recovery part of it. But at best possible, technology should be anonymous. You should not collect more than what you need. So there are some basic things that you need to do in order to make sure that you have the story to start the assurance piece, right? If you don't have the story right, you can't never assure the employee. So fundamentally, the technology should be sound and it should be anonymous. The second thing is to just make sure that the employees are comfortable and it is designed in a way that is easy to use, and they are provided contextual information, whether it is safety or whether it is a transaction that they're doing. You provide contextual information when it is and provide it easily. That will start building the confidence, and they have to get the benefit of the technology. If they don't get the benefit of the technology, remove it. Don't do it.
Absolutely. See, while considering GDPRs and all, so more than that, at the end, the paradigm is as a customer, they should enjoy, they should feel the value proposition, right? So
exactly.
And there are,
and it's been proven. So by all means, research, do the thorough research before you start deploying something.
Absolutely. Thanks, Raj. My next question to you, Paddy, this I got from the participant. I felt it's a really appropriate question. Maybe we would have, but it's a nice question from Abraham John. To you, Paddy, what is the contingency plan in the event of another pandemic? So we're only talking about this, so we don't know where we are heading, right? Which requires a different set of parameters. We may have to again game for the new set of challenges, right? Are we really doing anything on the whole, or we're just concentrating on this?
No, I think it's a very profound question, if I may say so, because first of all, I believe we have still not even completely understood the pandemic that we are already in, and I think if you really look at it, for most of us, this is the most comprehensive BCP plan that we have ever activated, and I think it's running for the longest time, right? There are so many spots, as I said. We are kind of responding by the day. But I think we have responded well. So in that sense, what I would say is you are actually match prepared. You are match ready. What is the next event? What is the next crisis? I don't think it's it's within our purview to kind of even to predict. But all I would say is I think from the kind of responses that we have seen across the world in many companies, in many businesses, I think they have tested to their maximum. And I think any more crisis or any different crisis, I'm sure we will be prepared to respond. How well we respond will depend on many factors, including the kind of event that we are going to face. But for that, I was just hearing to Girija, Sunil, and everybody else. In terms of our operational plan, whether it is transport or cafeteria or workplace or technology, whatever, I thought I was just thinking maybe little on the not core to the operations, but frankly speaking, we all need to understand this is not an occupational hazard. This is a life hazard, right? And there is so much that we can do as an organization. But beyond that, it's out of our control. We can state what we are doing to keep the workplace safer. Safer in a sense that it is not kind of adding to the wound already. It's not a place where there is breeding of contamination or the spread of the disease. But all that we are doing is we are taking all the precautions possible within the control, within whatever is fairly accepted as a norm. Every company is trying to do, but I think now what has happened it is moved beyond all this control. I think squarely the responsibility is on every individual, whether it is buttons on the lift or the coffee vending machine or whatever it is. However well that we educate people, if they do not follow, if they are not aware, if they do not care for their own, if they don't take responsibility for their own self, I think it will be very difficult, in spite of whatever efforts an organization will take, to really control and manage the situation. So I think our fundamental focus should be definitely to educate people that look, while company will take whatever precautions possible, the responsibility to safeguard yourselves is squarely on you. It may be very straightforward, very usual, very unethical, or it may be. I think it's important that we tell that.
Absolutely.
Thanks, Paddy. My next question to Sunil is from Santosh Kumar. I think probably it's my question as well, Sunil. So far, we're talking about maybe 30% of people may work from home, but we're not very sure, right? Are we really working on a strategy to get all 100% people back, or maybe? See, we are seeing different stories. So 4 months back, there's a different story, and you started seeing the announcement that 70% won't come, real estate will collapse, and so on. Now things are changing. The companies like JPM started announcing to bring back employees and whatever. In that context, so
Prasad, I heard you, and
is there any kind of planning on, probably do you believe that we'll be getting 100% people back, or only?
We have done probably to share, we have done a recent survey with a few of the companies that I know. Probably the survey which we have done, to share the results, 2021 up to March is this results that we have got. It is only 5 to 10% of people are agreeing to come back. right? Probably
Okay.
because of the vaccine issues or etc. We are not sure of. But most of the companies have decided to work from home till 21st 2021 of March. So that's the survey that we have done internally. Probably that would answer that 30% versus 70%, right? So I would suggest what Ramya said, right? So we should just go by percentage wise, 10, 20, then learn from our mistakes, learn from our experiences, and then move forward instead of going from 70 to 90 or whatever. So I would my personal opinion would be start with 5 and reach to a stage until we get the vaccine, and probably then decide. It's a wait and watch mode is what my feel is.
Absolutely. Sir. Now, do you really believe that we will be able to get 100% people back sometime, maybe year and a half? So that is the question.
It's a very tough question to answer. Probably Sriman Narayana will only be able to answer, I guess.
All of us, yeah. No, that's from the participant, and it's a responsibility to put it. So right, okay. Then my next question is to you, Raj. The expected impact in terms of the space needs, because technology piece would give the comfort, and also probably it will help us to manage with kind of a lesser space. Probably that's what your presentation was referring to, right? Maybe you manage well, you adjust well. So probably can you throw some light on that? What will be the expected impact? We'll be able to save some space. That's what your technology can help us.
So pre-COVID, Prasad Garu, that's exactly where our customers were going, right? They were looking at their space and they were saying, many of them were saying that we need to improve the utilization of the space, and not in a way where you just congest everybody together. It is about simply saying that make sure that the spaces that are available is used by people effectively. And so that language is going to continue, but it's going to change slightly. Now you need more space because you need to keep more people coming in, as much people coming in with further distance, de-densification. That is the word that came up in your survey as well. But as you de-densify, it becomes even more important that you use the space effectively. So the technology will help you to make sure that the space is getting used as it is intended, as people want it, so that will be the benefit. So what you'll see is a rebalancing of how you value space, and the point where the technology is going to make sure that despite you're using the space about 70-80% utilization, you're going to feel as if you're not crowding the space. And that is the beauty that the future that we're envisioning, is that technology is actually deployed in a way not to kind of congest people, which obviously now there's the safety concern, so you won't do it, but to actually make sure that the expensive real estate that you have in the central business district or those large technology parks will be used more effectively and in a flexible manner. That flexibility point was also pointed out. And I actually have a prediction on that 100% of users coming back. I genuinely feel that 100% of users will be allowed to come back. But on a given day, there is going to be anywhere between 30 and 70%. Now, this is where obviously you say it depends, right? So 30 and 70% of people will choose to come. So your space has to be flexible to accommodate that, and predictable and predictive. So there are several opportunities for technology to play to make the space more, work harder for you, which is always the intention for real estate teams.
Thanks, Raj. I think Basaraj, we're running over. I think 5 minutes late. I will take one question from the audience and maybe one more question to Paddy from my side. Is it fine? 2 more questions I want to cover. Right. The question from Bhupalan is maybe I will take that question myself. He's talking about multiple tenanted building. How are we going to manage or control lift lobbies and so on? It's a difficult question to answer, but so maybe few of the things which we have decided to adapt is staggered logins. Probably the number of people coming at one point of time will be reduced to the whatever extent possible. And we also use some parking spaces, probably empty it and ensure that physical distancing is already mapped in those spaces. The queues are managed by our security in addition to them, and also probably update employees in advance probably what are the steps taken. So, and also look forward for a kind of a cooperation. So if we talk about lifts, most of the landlords have already done the social distancing. It is our responsibility to probably tell employees to adhere to the safety measures put by them. So maybe there are some instances where tenants would take over a little bit of lobbies. Maybe 50% of the building is used by us. We also implement some practices, put our kind of a messaging and probably the measures, posters to probably create awareness. So this is how, so we're probably planning to handle that. So my last question is to you, Paddy, for today. So as we know, so the new normal is also going to get some cost impact on facilities operations. So I don't think we'll be able to get the budgets or additional budgets easily. What will be the cost implications for this new normal, and how are we preparing ourselves as facilities leaders?
Well, I think good question, Prasad. But I think the fact is that the budget that most CRE facilities organization had is sort of it's actually very skewed. In some areas, you are actually seeing savings. Like for example, in like power utilities, some of the staff welfare related expenses. Obviously, you have saved money because you do not have that many people in the office. But at the same time, you have spent a lot more on safety related aspects, whether it is consumables or the transport or heightened, kind of payments that we have made to some of our critical staffs and so on and so forth. So it's kind of taken a shift to what the situation demands. But I think looking forward, how it is going to be, I'm sure. Even for companies, I'm not speaking specifically for any company, but for in general, a lot of companies have seen some economies of adopting to the models that was invented not for cost saving purposes. It was a response to the situation that we all had, but of course they have discovered possibilities of better cost management. How at what scale they will adopt moving forward will define what will be the cost. But I think there was a general expectation because of this, we will be able to kind of achieve a lot better rentals with the landlords and things like that, which is probably we have all realized that's not being the case. I think, as I know, till date, no landlord has kind of reduced lease rentals, or to some extent, only very few landlords have kind of given some CAM reductions. But of course, the new leases, new real estate rates, the buyers, the tenants have an upper hand in terms of negotiating better terms. But for real estate, in no other area of operation, actually, any cost saving, if at all it's going to happen, is only happen because of the change will have. But at a unit level, no cost savings can be achieved, or no cost saving is already possible. That's what I feel. We have to wait and watch.
Sure.
I just want to
Thank you
add
very
here.
much for- Yeah, please.
I want to add here, Prasad. Many think that now that people are not there, our utility cost and everything should have come down, right? That is what some, even from business, that expectation is there. But actually, the reality is people are not coming to work, but we are still managing the equipment. That is, we can't switch off everything and say that I'm saving the cost utility or something. So even if there is some saving, some here and there, the lighting, which is 10% of the overall our utility cost, probably there is a minor change. If we switch off AC and all, then we have to spend a hell lot of money on cleaning the fungus and molds and other rest of the things later. So as such, there is no saving, but we don't have a choice. There is an additional spend that is happening, but it is to run the business. It is an investment that we are doing.
Absolutely. No,
just one more sentence to add, Prasad.
As facility leaders.
Prasad, I just want to add one more sentence.
Sure.
One cannot compromise on health and safety. period. I
True.
think we will have to go back and sell ourselves much better to the CFOs and say what is need of the hour: health
Absolutely.
and safety and hygiene.
Absolutely. No, that's where I'm coming from, Sunil. So everybody supports as long as you don't ask for an additional budget, right? So it's kind of a different ball game. We are able to get support, but it's not an easy thing, right? So especially transport, we're at around 1.2 million we spent from OpenText. I had to go and ask a $500,000 to cover Bangalore operations for transport. Yes, it's a genuine reason, but it's not that easy to get approvals. That's where I'm coming from.
Yeah, so it is the prerogative of every facility manager to go and sell and put a
Absolutely.
neat dashboard to the CFO and say what is need of the hour.
Absolutely. No, we are going up to CEO. We have to do a lot of legwork for it. Yeah. Thank you so much. And thank you very much, all the panelists. It's been wonderful moderating all of you. Thank you very much, all the participants, being the wonderful audience. Thank you for providing an opportunity to me and my panelists. Thank you very much. I think, sorry for probably running over by 10 minutes. I will hand over back to Basiraj. Thanks.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank
Thank you, everyone. Thank you for attending. And to summarize, the future is basically very well, and the top priority will be health and safety. And what will be the new normal? Not stay for long. I think we need to look beyond the business and see how we are going to run our facilities. What is the value we are going to add for organizations? And thank you all for sharing your insights. And I hope it has definitely helped facility heads to plan their facilities to come up with a return to work strategy. Thank you all and stay safe.
Thank you.
Thank you very
Bye-bye.
much. Yeah. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.